Hi. So I'm gonna talk about a few things. Now, everyone who um, saw my Facebook page today could see that I did this really cool rainbow hyena drawing that I based upon both MLP, the Care Bears, and Rainbow Bright, and I'm going to show it in this video. First, though, I'm going to show this other thing I did, which is just this random mythical creature, horns kind of like a pronghorn antelope, fur in the lower body, and a tail kind of like a white wolf with hooves, horsey-like hooves, and a blue dog-like body with a hyena-like mane. This guy also has got a braid and a star on his cheek, as you can see. And then, what else? Here is this guy on video. He's on TV. Like we used to say, we're on TV, although now we say we're on YouTube. So, just wanted to show you those, again. So anyway, I plan to do a lot more videos. Pretty soon, I do plan on doing the Israel face and body paint, and the German Shepherd body, not body paint, but German Shepherd face paint, and then I plan on doing the David Bowie face paint. Probably all of that will be in August, and let me see. I wanted to say a few more things about myself. Well, you sometimes have these people on Facebook saying about YouTube, talking about different, aspects of who they are, and it's something that some people on the autism spectrum do obsessively, and granted, if you like to do it obsessively on your own, that's fine. I do find too much of it, to be a little bit much, but I like to say some of it to sometimes talk about what I like and what I do, favorite things sometimes. Some of it's cool. So, I'll say a little bit more about myself. I really like hard-boiled eggs. And my two favorite parts of Passover would be dipping the hard-boiled egg in salt water. If you study the Jewish and also Masonic and pagan sun worship symbolism of the egg at Passover, which also goes for Ostara, spring equinox, and for Easter, basically there's a lot of spring and seasonal symbolism around there, but specifically the Shulchan Aruch, as they call it in Hebrew, of the dipping the hard-boiled egg in salt water at Passover. There's a ton of symbolism and a ton of magic in there, such as it wards off evil spirits, and it's basically the entire plot of The Lion King in this hard-boiled egg that you eat. That's all I can say, but you want to know more about it, you can study about it in information articles about Judaism. You'll find a lot of info there. So, the other part I like, of course, is getting a little bit wasted on, not seriously trashed, but a little bit more than tipsy on Manischewitz wine. One other thing about that is that even though I'm in my early 30s, my alcohol still has to taste like candy. However, I am not as, I still don't like anything that's bitter and not sweet, but now I just have this real fondness for bittersweet stuff. Mainly dark pipe tobacco, bittersweet chocolate, and other dark chocolate, like the organic fair trade kind, that's really good. Coffee, although I do load it up with more sweetener than most adults do. So, and although it's usually a low-calorie or no-calorie sweetener, I use stevia, agave nectar, and or coconut sugar, all of which coconut sugar and agave nectar have a lot fewer calories than white sugar, and stevia has no calories. Then I also love, the alcoholic stuff I like is mixed drinks of hard liquor combined with sweet stuff, and kosher wine that's the sweet variety, Manischewitz and Kedem sweet types. I still do not like what I referred to as a child as that bitter wine. I still think that's a funny reference. So, I also do like to smoke a tobacco pipe once in a while. I do not, never mind. I do not like cigarettes. I think they're gross. And I don't smoke excessively. I'm not addicted, but once in a while I like to just sip at it and, not inhale, but enjoy it as a special treat. So, what else? Like I said, The Land Before Time is something I bawl my eyes out. Listening to If We Hold On Together and just watching the original movie with the beautiful soundtrack, I bawl my eyes out when Littlefoot's mother dies, of course, but I often sob even harder when, after she's died, her spirit talks to him, because there you have Steven Spielberg, giving you sort of the earth-based Jewish spiritual messages in which, after she's died, Littlefoot has a burning bush vision, which is a reference to Moses in the burning bush, when his tree star falls down from the sky and he hears her voice. She's speaking, her spirit is speaking to him through the tree star about how he must find the Great Valley to avoid extinction. So that is, I'm sure anybody who knows anything about the Passover story can see the burning bush reference in that. And that just it warms my heart and it breaks it at the same time. It is so beautiful. I cannot watch that. I cry really hard at that scene more than I do when his mother actually dies, because the spirituality in that is just so beautiful and so moving. So, what else? The sequels, my opinion on the Land Before Time sequels, crap. I used to like to watch the sequels when I was younger, but really, the reason I find them really insulting and just crappy is basically because the spirituality of the first movie. The first movie has that, liberal Jewish kind of allegory in it that Steven Spielberg probably incorporated into it, since he did a lot of work on it along with Don Bluth and George Lucas. And the fact that the original movie just makes me cry with both joy and sadness, and I feel the movie brings me closer to God and closer to the spirit world. So, the fact that most of the sequels have nothing to do with religion, although some of the later ones do contain certain similar references to it, what I really don't like is how the very first sequels, how they have crappy animation and basically no spirituality in them. They're just like cartoons for kids, for little kids. And what also bothers me is that Littlefoot, I know once he gets to the Great Valley, and even though he's seen the spirit of his mother, he knows that there's an afterlife and she's there, I'm sure he still had to do some grieving over his mother dying. He had to go through the grief process, and not only him, but his grandparents had to grieve. I found out from watching this video about a review of all the sequels that in the later sequels, Littlefoot reunites with his dad, and his father turns out to not have died, and that his dad is the son of the grandparents you see in the movie. So his other two grandparents who had died before he was born had given birth to his mom. So basically, his mom is the daughter-in-law of the grandparents you see in the first movie and all the sequels. So I'm sure that his grandparents, that you see in the movies, had to also be grieving terribly for the loss of their daughter-in-law. So the fact that they don't even show, that the first several sequels don't even show the grieving process of that, I find that really cheap, fake, and frankly disrespectful to the original. So, anyway, there's a few things that I just discussed. So, that's it for now. I plan on doing a lot more story parodies. I think that they're really funny. And, I'll just tell you my opinion on the actual fairy tales that I based them on. Really not a fan of them, basically because they came out of a culture in Europe that was part of the whole denial of once being part of that universal hunting culture in which man and wolf hunted side by side. That's why you have the big bad wolf in those stories. And I find those stories, even the ones that don't have wolves, kind of way too much that way, and I honestly think that the original stories, I'm hoping that they can be discarded at some point. Although, I am not against the Disney or the Haim Saban and Shuki Levy retellings of them, because you gotta remember, Shuki Levy, Haim Saban, and Walt Disney were basically just taking the original stories and adapting them. And frankly, both Walt Disney and Haim Saban and Shuki Levy are far more respectful towards wolves in general than the original Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen or Charles Perrault. So, They do. All of them have some bad wolf characters, but they also have a lot more good wolf characters than the original authors ever did. So, I don't know. I don't think you should maybe get rid of the original stories completely, but what really irks me is how some people say keep the original fairy tales even though wolves are bad guys there, and in spite of the horrible wolf genocide still being promoted today, which it is, they insist on keeping those stories alive because they're traditional parts of a culture, albeit a culture that was anti-ecology. However, a lot of these same people want Disney to be completely boycotted and possibly removed as a corporation that they deem evil. Now, um, I think that you need to be consistent. If you want to ban Disney, you also should ban the original fairy tales. If you want to keep the original fairy tales, keep Disney too. There are a lot of rumors out there about Walt Disney being anti-Semitic, about unethical corporate practices, which actually ended 15 years ago, and about the racist and sexist stereotypes. I really don't think that they matter that much, because, a lot of, as with wolves, with women in the Disney fairy tales, the Disney adaptations of the fairy tales treat women a whole lot better than the original fairy tales ever did. And, I really think that the struggle to end racism and to end discrimination really should target actual, racism and sexism happening in society and not cartoons. Cartoons aren't to blame. Actual real life events happening in society that you see on the news are to blame. So, that's it for now.